Not sure why, but I have always liked cars that people don't tend to go for. I've always wanted cars that are just that little bit different that not everyone has. Like, I definitely appreciate popular cars like the Golf R or the Audi S3 and stuff like that, but in reality, the cars I actually want, most people don't have. And that's not always because they're exclusive, it's just because, in my opinion, they're pretty underrated. How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk you through 5 cars that I would probably have myself, as they're all pretty underrated and cost less than £20,000. Don't forget, I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries may be different, and whenever you buy any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance, road tax, all the good stuff is important to remember. If you also like underrated cars videos and want to see more videos just like this one, get this video to 1,000 likes, do the same video again at a different price range. And let me know in the comments down below, what car do you think is the most underrated car in the world? Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's kick this video off with what is, in my books, at least an exotic car, if not arguably the definition of a cheap supercar, the Maserati Granturismo. Of course, it's not actually a supercar, it's a luxury Grand Tourer, but for the money, it's hard to find anything quite as exotic without going for something like a Bentley Continental GT or equivalent. It has a Ferrari Maserati collab 4.2 litre V8 engine that makes 399 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, which again isn't supercar pace, but I'm still hardlining that point as it's literally a Pininfarina design Ferrari engined Italian sports car, so it's as close as you'll get. Considering therefore that you can get these so cheap these days and they don't tend to feature as people's first choice, they really are underrated in my opinion. It derives from the same platform as the Quattroporte, instead being focused on operating a comfortable luxury GT that wouldn't look out of place driving in the south of France or equivalent. This reflects on the interior, which I would say is one of the highlights of this car, looking incredible thanks again to Pininfarina and its Italian leather stylings, with a vast array of spec options when it was new back in 2007. What's also crazy about this car is that Maserati spent just 9 months developing it, making it the quickest developed car in history, as the original plans for the new Maserati Coupe were kept by Ferrari when they sold the company to Fiat. Maserati rapidly pulled the Granturismo together to get an offering on the market, and maybe that's why it doesn't get the same love it could do today. These start at around £19,000, so for 20 grand you'll be getting a 2009 example with 70,000 miles on the clock. The scary part for most people watching will be the reliability, as a Ferrari Maserati engine just sounds financially ruinous if it goes wrong. Owners note that maintenance isn't cheap, but the engine on the whole isn't bad, having been applied in many other Ferraris and Maseratis, so it has had time to refine itself. Instead, it's the gearbox that is less reliable and can cost a fortune to fix. Watch for oil leaks on these and the many known problems with the electrics that appear across the different owners' forums. Next up is one of my personal favourite cars, particularly within this price range, the BMW Z4M, which is only getting prettier with age. It shares its engine with the E46 BMW M3, a 3.2 litre inline-6 engine that makes 338 brake horsepower, which gets from 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds, and just putting it out there, I think this is a way cooler car than the E46, particularly in coupe spec. Let's talk about that point straight away. Of course, the Z4 convertible is a well-known car, but I think the shape of the coupe is much cooler, and that reflects in the prices of used examples, where convertibles are normally much cheaper than their coupe equivalents. It's not dissimilar logic to the Z3M, where the clown shoe is worth way more than the convertible, though prices are attached to an extent. As the coupe increases, so does the Roadster. That Z3M is already considered to be a classic, and I honestly believe the Z4M is well on its way there too, given prices have been steadily increasing now for about 7 years. I think the fact that it's a Z4, which isn't a particularly rare car, is what makes it remain underrated. It's definitely an acquired taste, but it's definitely a taste that I acquired a long time ago, and if they weren't going up so much in value, I would probably want to buy one myself. I think the design is amazing on these, and they look very muscular with that hardtop roof flicking off the rear in the bangle butt styling. Get some CSL alloys on one, and it's an absolute stunner in my books. Normally I'm a manual fan, by the way, and I would have a manual version of this car, but I've been told that the automatic SMG box is actually really good at speed, so if you plan on taking it on track, then don't assume the auto box won't give you the changes that you need. Owners do complain about it being lurchy at lower speeds though. This is the cheapest car on the list, starting around £12,000, with 20 grand getting a 2007 model with 80,000 miles on the clock. Head gasket and Vanos issues are known, as well as knocking suspension and the SMG gearbox suffering slow changes on automatic models. Look for engine oil and filter changes every 7,500 miles, and for blockage blockages on the roof drain holes, as these can lead to rust. Taking third on this list, it's the smallest car with the biggest engine, the Mercedes SLK55 AMG, with its 5.4 litre V8 that produces 354 brake horsepower and will manage 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. It has very similar styling to a unicorn car, the McLaren SLR, just a baby version, and I think because the standard SLK managed to garner a reputation in the 2000s of being a hairdresser's car, the SLK55 AMG went a little bit underappreciated alongside many of the less aggressive models. On top of this, as it sits in the small roadster class alongside cars like the Mazda MX-5 and Toyota MR2, it was a bit of a strange offering for the time, being a premium, expensive player in a relatively cheap car class with some solid competition. Mercedes really focused on making the car handle well despite the hardtop convertible roof, with a key principle being rigidity, as well as making sure the car had good aero to get it to be efficient and grip up well. It's no afterthoughts by AMG for sure, and I'd say it looks pretty amazing too. In fact, I'd say it looks nicer aesthetically than the SL AMGs of the same era, though that's literally just my opinion, so feel free to ignore. Maybe it just attracts me more as a car that you rarely ever see. If you really care about performance in one of these, I would highly recommend getting the performance pack, which adds composite brakes to the already stacked list of sportier features like the stiffered lower sport suspension, 18-inch alloys, quad exit exhaust, and punchier interior to keep you bolstered in place as you bash around B roads. £14,000 minimum you'll find them listed for, and for 20 grand you get a 2006 model with around 70,000 miles on it. On reliability, the two main things to look for are uneven idling and oil leaks, but also be aware of the transmission fluid levels, as though the gearbox is strong, it has been known to overheat. Some owners have also noticed that the front suspension components can wear out faster than you'd like, given you've got such a large engine at the front of such a small car. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. A reminder, if you haven't already, let me know in the comments down below what the most underrated car in the world is in your opinion. And if you're new here, make sure you hit subscribe and go follow me on Instagram at CarsWithJB for plenty more car content. In second place on the list is a car that I included in a video not too long ago, the Lexus IS F, which despite its fake and strange quad exit exhaust tips is definitely underrated given its 5 litre V8 engine that produces 417 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.6 seconds. I honestly think the reason why this car is so underrated is that not many people know it even exists. It was released at the same time as the Lexus LFA as a concept, with a similarly bonkers idea by Lexus to create a purpose-built super saloon that could only ever be named as such. To do this, they developed the engine alongside Yamaha's F1 engine program to gain as much of that technology as it could by osmosis. They also had to design it with a huge amount of space up front to fit that massive engine and build a beefier body to accommodate wide track and better aero. The car was developed on the Nürburgring, which I know James May says makes a bad car, but I personally love a car developed for the track, as I still have little to no interest in being comfortable and a bunch of interest in having more visceral experiences in something a little bit more mental. Despite Lexus's more sensible badge, I think the ISF is cut from the same cloth as the LFA, not just because they both have 3 letters and share the stage, but because they both show what Lexus can do from a performance and beauty perspective, at least when they put their minds to it. Knowing as well that it's highly unlikely the majority of people watching this video will ever be able to afford an LFA, it's good to know that the ISF is still relatively reasonable on price, and that's what makes it such a great offering in my books. These start at around the £18,000 mark, and for £20,000 you get a 2008 example that has done 100,000 miles, making it the highest mileage car on this list for the price. Being a Lexus, it's supposedly pretty reliable and the engine can handle more power, but it also needs to be serviced on time and is known to have a leaking heat transfer plate. Taking the top spot is the stunning Audi RS5, which is a properly quick car thanks to its 4.2 litre V8 that produces 443 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. It was the successor of a car that hadn't been around since the 1990s, the Audi 90, and was Audi's first foray into this style of coupe car for the 21st century. It is actually the coupe version of the Audi RS4, but to be perfectly honest, the two don't look particularly similar outside of the classic Audi stylings. The reason why I think it's so underrated is that this is effectively the older M3 or newer M4 equivalent from Audi, also going toe-to-toe with the Mercedes C63 AMG, yet I feel like it's way more understated and doesn't receive anywhere near as much interest. It could be confirmation bias, so do let me know in the comments if you disagree with me, but I rarely hear anyone saying they'd love an RS5 as one of their dream attainable cars, but I often get people lusting after M3s, M4s and C63s. I mean, even compared to the RS3, it appears to be way less popular as a car, and I really don't understand why, other than suggesting it's the lack of history behind the car in comparison to the other cars that I mentioned. There have been many M3s, many C-Class AMGs, but the RS5 is the first of its kind designed for Audi. Maybe in the future they'll change with newer generations, but who knows. In reality, it's an all-wheel drive V8 engine beast that won multiple design awards with aggressive stylings and insane spec that includes carbon ceramic brakes on the front and is hugely well equipped on the interior too. If I was going for one, I'd look for the carbon pack, which gives the interior, exterior and engine a bunch of carbon fibre parts and makes the car stand out that little bit more. This beautiful Audi starts at around the £15,000 mark, and for £20,000 you'll be looking at getting a 2011 model with 60,000 miles on it, making it the newest car on the list in this price range. Gearboxes have been known to go wrong on these, although I wouldn't call it a common problem by any means, and thus far the V8 hasn't suffered particularly from carbon buildup like previous iterations of that block. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new here. I want to say a massive thanks to everyone who went and watched my previous video. It was a go-karting video, which doesn't tend to do so well, but this one's done much better than my previous ones, so I'm definitely keep doing go-karting content if you guys are interested. Massive thanks to the patrons as always for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.